Hi, Paul Slakis, Good News Planet. Oh, this is going to be a very good interview. I'll tell you why. 4 days with Kenny Tedford. Kenny's up there on the left here. Hi, Kenny. How you doing?
Hey,
Kenny is a cool dude, and Paul is as well. We have Paul Smith and Kenny Tedford Jr. They have a book, 4 Days with Kenny Tedford: Life Through the Eyes of a Child Trapped in a Partially Blind and Deaf Man's Body. This is what they call uplifting, and this is what I call Good Samaritans, and this is what I call a tale of life affirmation. And so I am so honored that we were all practicing our love sign, and I think it works here. So you know what? Why don't Paul? Why don't you give us a startup here? How did we all get involved with this book, and why?
Yeah, so Kenny and I met at a storytelling festival of all places. He and I were both actually speaking at this storytelling festival, but on different stages at different times. And so we didn't know that, but we met on the front row of one of the other stages watching another performer. And I just thought it was rather bold when this 60-ish year old deaf man walked in and sat down right next to me with his sign language interpreter, which I just thought was really bold for a 3-day storytelling festival. And so I had to meet the guy, and we ended up having lunch that day. And that's where I began to hear at least a little bit of his life story, and found out that he's, born deaf in both ears and legally blind in one eye, and, with a learning disability and partially paralyzed on one side of his body. So a lot of challenges that most of us don't have. And he just was the most charming man in the world. And that, honestly, Paul, that just fascinated me, and I needed to learn more.
I can appreciate that. Within 1 minute, I'm in love with the guy. He's just that kind of a guy who exuberates. No, that's not
Exudes.
the right word. Exudes, right?
Yes.
He exudes happiness. I don't know. What's your story? Come on, share a little, because I don't know. I could use a little hint here on what I should be doing. Teddy, tell us about yourself.
well, I probably already introduced, he gave away my age, so that's okay.
You look like you're 21. You shouldn't even be able to,
I appreciate it.
drink.
I love it. I'm enjoying every day. The older I get, the better I feel. I was born, with deafness in one ear, deaf in both ears actually, but the left ear had enough hearing that I got a hearing aid. Then as I got older, it got worse, and I had 2 hearing aids. Then it got worse after I fell off a cliff and broke my neck, and I hit my head against a rock. So I became deaf. So now I read lip, because that was my most way of communicating, because I can hear you make a noise. But if I turn my head, I wouldn't understand a word of you or Paul say at all. And then I was born with brain damage, so lack of oxygen. I was born, how they said, 7 months premature, 2 months premature. I was born on the 7th month. So I don't know which one the word is, but I'm still working on my English. And so because of that, that's why my whole left side, I have a little paralysis, So a lot of time I tell people, when my girlfriend gets mad and slaps me, I turn my head, make sure she slaps me over here, because it doesn't hurt as bad.
This is a bit, Paul and I, Paul, we decided to, our names weren't Paul before this interview, but we decided to keep the names to keep it simple in general. Teddy, I could see how Paul is a very acclaimed storyteller, senior executive in major corporations, and speaks worldwide. Very, very impressive. In fact, I could actually go to sleep and have Paul do the whole thing here, because he's interviewed a lot of CEOs and done very well with it. And so Paul, I imagine when you met Teddy, it just was like instant. Boy, this is somebody who I want to know more of. Is that how it just kind of came together?
Well, he definitely intrigued me at first, but I didn't have anything that I could do with that at the time. It actually was a year later. I was in the middle of writing, or at the beginning of writing, my second book. And it occurred to me to interview Kenny just for like one page in the book. I was writing a collection of stories to help parents teach their kids, character lessons. And I knew that guy I met a year earlier would have some interesting stories. And so I got on the like a call like you and I are right now, interviewing him. And in the middle of the interview, he'd already told me several stories. And I asked him this question. I said, wow, these are all amazing stories. Have you ever thought about writing a book? And he said, well, no, people ask me that all the time, but he said, I can't write. That's just one of my disabilities, my challenges is I can't write very well. And that's when I said something, Paul, that honestly probably surprised me as much as it surprised Kenny. I said, well, you know what? I'll do it. Kenny, I'll write your story. And that was the beginning of the next book that was to come out in a long and fruitful journey.
There you go. All right. You know what? I'm intrigued. Kenny, how about a story?
Hey,
Well,
Kenny, how about you tell him about being on the bus in Memphis?
okay. When I was when I was 8 years old, both my parents passed away. My father passed away at Christmas when I was 8. 5 months later, my mother passed away. And then we moved from Dallas to Memphis. And that was the very first time I ever rode on a bus. I didn't know what the bus was. All I know was school bus. And then my foster mother, who is my foster sister, is my aunt. So she wanted to go downtown, show us downtown Memphis when we first got there. And so we got on the bus and we sat down right behind the bus driver. Then I thought it was kind of weird because every time a white person gets on, they sit around us, the front of the bus. This was in the early 60s, so people got to understand it was like 1961, I believe. And that was during when the civil rights got the blacks, I don't know what the word I'm supposed to use to be correct, got the right. But before that, every time the black got on the bus, they went to the back of the bus. And then later, a senior citizen, an older woman that was black, getting on the bus. So I got up to help her because that's what my father taught me to do, respect senior citizens. So when I got up, my father's mother grabbed a loop of my pants and pulled me back down. She went, shh, don't do anything. And I looked at her and I said, why ain't you? And this woman finally got up to the top of the steps. And she looked at me, she said, it's okay, honey. It's okay, baby. And so the bus driver said, come on, we gotta go. It's really rude to her. So she went to the back of the bus and so we took off and it was very hot that day. I mean, it was about like 80-something degrees in the summer. And then I started to see all the black in the back and we were in the front, people were wiping their sweat because every time the door opened, the heat would come in. So I just saw all the black folks there laughing, talking, having a good time. And I just thought, anyway, I just got up and I started to walk to the back. My father's mother grabbed my loop of my pants, pulled me back down. She said, what are you doing? I said, I want to go back there with the black kids because they're smart. It's air conditioning. Up here in the front, it's hot. You all idiots. Man, she put her hand on my mouth and the bus driver kind of turned around and told her, if you didn't keep me shut up, you're going to make us get off the bus. And then I looked at my father and I said, what is wrong with everybody? And then that was the beginning of me understanding about racial issues between people, differences. And that surprised me and it hurt me. I really felt bad. And so that was the beginning of my life of understanding different culture. But we grew up when I was in Dallas. My father had friends play cards. One was black, one was Hispanic. And they'll play cards. And then the guy that was there, which is one of his friends that was black, had a beer that tasted bad, so he gave it to Daddy. And Daddy drank it. Ew, it is sour. Gave it to the Hispanic guy, he drank it. Ew, it is sour. And Daddy got up a new beer. So I saw this growing up, and I think that's where a child learns his behavior towards other people that are different. And so that's how I learned about racial issues.
And your story here right now, first of all, this is in the book, this story.
Yeah, certainly. And Paul, you have to imagine, this little 8-year-old boy and his foster mother trying to explain institutionalized racism to him. You know, it's hard enough for an adult to understand that, but yet she's trying to explain it to a kid. And you know, there's something beautiful about seeing all of these beautiful and ugly parts of humanity through the eyes of Kenny as a child, seeing them. And things just become so much more clear for some reason. I'm not sure I can explain it, but when you see how ridiculous that bus scene looked to 8-year-old Kenny, it becomes even more obvious how wrong it all was.
Yeah, that's, you know, as a TV guy from 50 years myself, making TV shows and things, you know, so there's the, you know, the story is told. It's a movie scenario. It's a the TV scenario. It's the kind of a scenario of reality of our humanity in many levels. And I think in essence, and I think, Paul, why you decided to create this book along with Teddy, and Teddy being open to create a book like this about him and his own tale, is that this is education 1010. And so you know, if we could understand, you know, they always say look through a child's eyes, and you can see. In fact, they say even if you want to invest in things, find out where the kids want to go, and invest in anything they touch. So that's a beautiful, beautiful tale. Is there another thought here, another story that you feel replicates what's in this book for yourselves?
Kenny, do you think you could tell them a short version of the magical crayon story?
Sure. It all started, you know, like I said, for 35 years, I wanted to write a book. But when I was a kid, after we left Dallas, we went to Memphis, and I was in a special education class. Back then, I was called retarded for until I was about 9. I was different. So I was put in the back of the class with a piece of paper, that kind of yellow paper, remember back in the 60s, a big yellow paper and a box of crayons. But she pulled out 3 crayons, black, gray, and white, and handed it to me. And I thought, I wanted the whole box because everybody else got a box of crayons. And that was back in the day, you had the 24 crayons, you know, the smaller box. And I couldn't understand. And I said, why can't I have a box of crayon like everybody else? She said, well, you're retarded and you can't be creative. You can't understand what we understand because you can't hear. So she said, just start drawing. She went to the front, and she was kind of a mean teacher. She was very different. And so one of the kids in the front of the class turned around and looked at me, and I went, and he waved back. He turned back around, he raised his hand. The teacher said, what? You know, and he said, I went that back there with Kenny. Well, my name then was Kenneth. So I went that back there with Kenneth. And she said, can't. And he said, why not? She said, because he's retarded. And he goes, oh. So he turned around, and all their kids turned around and looked at me. I went, hey. And then they all turned back around. They all started raising their hands. The teacher, what is it? What do you all want? They said, we all want to be retarded too, like Kenneth. And I sat back there like, oh my God, I'm neat. They call me special. Now I know why I'm special, because I'm different. But I did not know what the word retarded meant. So I thought it's a good thing. That just means I'm just like them. I'm no different, you know. So I still couldn't understand the crayon part. But then as I left, you know, I had, that's basically the beginning of the magical crayon. And then another teacher who had met me in the hallway saw how sad I was. And I just told her what the teacher said, what just happened in class. She goes, come here. So she went to her class, and she opened a cabinet, and she took out a box of 24 crayons. Because she looked at my picture and she said, this is kind of spooky, depression, just 3 colors. That's all she gave me. And of course she knew, because the teacher said I wasn't smart or creative. She goes, here. So in the backpack, she put a whole box of crayons and a couple of the paper, rolled up, put it in my bag. And she got on her knees, just held on my shoulder, you know, looked right at me with a lot of compassion and love for me, that I was somebody unique, I guess, or like everybody else. She said, you are one of my best kids in the school that everybody talks about. You tell stories. It's the way you tell it. You tell it from your heart. You're not memorizing. She said, I want you to go and be creative this weekend and draw something. Be creative, what's around you. And so I did. I went to the park the next day, and I started to draw. I pulled the paper out and the box of crayon. I started drawing, and a butterfly landed on my hand. It was yellow, and I thought, oh my God, it's a gorgeous butterfly. And then another one landed on my shoulder, and then flying around me with several different colors, just beautiful butterflies. So I didn't know where they were coming from, so I looked to my right, and there's a bush. So there's probably some kind of a plant that attracts butterflies. And there's a bunch of them, and I just kept watching. I thought, ah. So I drew a picture, finished, wrote it up, went home. And but the thing is, when I got home, the day that I got the crayon, the day before, part of the story, my mother was on the front porch waiting for us, and she said, "What are you so happy about?" Because I was just skipping home, and I said, Mama, she said, "What is it? What are you so happy about?" "I'm retarded." She almost fainted, and so she said, "Who called you retarded?" I said, "Well, the teacher, the principal, the student, practically everybody at school." "Oh my God!" She said, "Never say that word again." I said, "Why not? I'm unique because all the kids want to be like me." She goes, "Shh. We never talk about that. No, don't tell anybody else." But as the story goes, I came back to school, and I had a psychiatrist, what they called back then, they were counselors studying the brain of a kid who's retarded. I guess maybe I'm an act killer or something. And that's what they do. They look at drawing to find out about my emotion, because I can't explain myself. My speech was really bad back then. And when the first picture he saw was a 3 crayon, he said, "This is depressing." Or he gave me a D- and wrote it up and said, "Good luck." So I thought he was kind of crazy. I thought, I don't have 3 crayons. And so he came in a week later, and that's when I had the new picture that I drew in the park. So he wrote that, and he looked at it, and his eyes just got big, and he just said, "My God, beautiful, beautiful. Oh my God, look at the butterfly." He goes, "Is that a woman on the back of the butterfly?" I go, "Yep." He goes, "Who's the woman?" I said, "That's my mom." "Your mom?" "Yeah, she's flying all over the room to make sure you give me an A." And he had tears in his eyes. I mean, he was really, I don't know, he was emotional. He goes, what a creative, he said the word, "What a creative idea." And then he told me not to look. I didn't look. He graded it. I went home, opened it. It was an A+.
There you go. Kenny, you got a couple columns. You got a genius column. You got a genius column in wisdom of intelligence. I'm going to say it for whatever. I'm probably not qualified to say it, but I'm going to say it. And you got a wisdom. You got a wisdom of life. You'll see 50 times, I would say, more in one single situation than most. You absorb the world around you. You take it in. You love it, and you are so expressive with it. And Mr. Paul over here, he's the one genius to, I will say also, to recognize the strength in your character. And so, I would say usually, I'll tell you, from my observation, my 50 years, corporate, CBS, PBS, whatever, the corporate world, usually the CEOs of corporations are usually the nicest people in the corporation. They're usually the most polite, because if they weren't, nobody would want to, work for him or her. And it's very ironic. You're a CEO. He saw the CEO in you, and in my mind. And this is a beautiful story. So, and I wish you the most success, because this is the kind of book that the world, that they should throw out half of the books that they're wasting the time, reading on, and sense this, even from the multicultural perspective as well. That's the story that should be read on network TV and the opening line of the New York Times, because these are the things that will help us move forwards. And
Appreciate
Paul,
it.
anything else you want to like share at this moment? I'd love to talk to you again, and maybe we can talk about your book, Paul, too, if you'd like at some point. Is there
Yeah,
anything?
we could come back. I could just tell you that if folks want to learn more about Kenny or get a hold of the book, they can find him at his website, which is kennytedford.com. But yeah, the name of the book is 4 Days with Kenny Tedford, and it really chronicles the 4 days that he spent with me in my home, sharing his life story with me and my wife and kids. And you get to see the impact that it had on us as you go through the book as well.
All right, last question. We're involved with the International Day of Peace, the United Nations Day of Peace. And we've been doing that since 2002. We do a concert, Central Park, Times Square, and around the world. There's 193 countries agreed to a day of peace. Ceasefire, you know. And the good news is that we keep trying to get closer to that. And the good news is that, as Yoko Ono says, you know, imagine peace. Peace is here in most scenarios, or we wouldn't be here, humanity. So if we look at the positive, so I've asked lots of people, what does peace mean to you? Paul, why don't I start with you? What is, if you don't mind sharing, what's peace for you?
Wow. I mean, the simple answer is lack of hostility, but I think you're probably looking for something a little deeper than that. I might say the presence of harmony and love and caring for our fellow man. Maybe that's peace.
That's a beautiful thing. All right, sir. Kenny, peace for you.
So Kenny, he's asking, what is your definition of the word peace?
Peace.
P-E-A-C-E, peace.
To me, peace is basically just finding yourself and know your inner side, like my inner child. But I'm talking about peace to me is everybody get along. I don't get, you can hate me, but I'm still going to love you, and I hope I can teach you something about all those around us. So to me, peace is just getting along with everybody, no matter who they are. I mean, just love one another.
I love it. Guys, thanks so much. Thank you.
Thanks for having us on, Paul.